Hey guys, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. So I'm just jumping out here to do another quick little video on an experience. So, shortly after my awakening and I came back, um, meditation was my first, um, step on the path. And so after doing that, after being guided to meditation, I was then guided to do yoga, right? And so I wanted to share this one cool experience I had with yoga because I know a lot of times, like, make sure this is on. Um, Nowadays, a lot of people are doing yoga as exercise, so it's totally a different, form of yoga. And I do want to put it out there that when you do a certain action, you get a different result. So when you're doing yoga as exercise, you're going to get a different experience from it than whereas if you were to use yoga and the purpose of spirituality and connecting to yourself, you're going to get a different response, right? So shortly after um, my awakening and I was on the meditation path, meditation came to me like probably about, I'd say about a week or two after, and I was just guided. It was like this draw to meeting this person who taught me about meditation. And shortly after that, I was guided to start getting back into, self care, taking care of myself. And so yoga was part of that. And when I lived actually up on top of a mountain. Um, and so there really wasn't any gyms, per se, within a distance unless you were driving. And then I found out that they had recently opened up a gym on the top of the mountain, and it was so interesting. So I went there, and it wasn't really a place that I would go, but because it was all more masculine energy, it wasn't like a gym. It was like a masculine energy gym, more like for muscle building, male masculine energies. Not that that's not for women, but it just wasn't something that I would normally go to. I would go to one that had like the feminine, like the spa kind of mix in there, or a pool, something like that with exercising classes and things like that. But I ended up going there because I was guided to, and it was interesting because I started working out on the equipment, and all of a sudden, like they started having this class, and this one lady, she had was passing through, and she just got done teaching in India, about yoga, and so I was like, okay, I felt the call, the guidance to go ahead and um, start taking the yoga class. And I didn't know that she was. I thought she was just going to be teaching there, but obviously she was just passing through because she had shortly disappeared after I took like 3 of our classes, and it was really interesting on how that happened. And so I had signed up for the class, went to the class, and the first one, that was really interesting. I had an emotional release from that one, and I literally like had so much tears. It was like very healing, right? And so this is where I'm saying like yoga, when your intention for yoga, if you're going to use it for exercise, it's an exercise. You don't really get much out of it but physical, strength. But when you're using it, as far as like your spiritual or a different intention, it's something else. You get a different result. So this is where I kind of learned about how our emotions get stuck in our body and things like that. And our body is like the record, right? So, you know, prior to my awakening, I had a lot of like suffering going on. And so, not knowing about my emotions and processing and working with them, because I wasn't taught that, right? I grew up where, um, in a family where you don't cry, otherwise you're made to be cry. You're. I would say, the response I would get from my family is if you want to cry about something, I'll give you something to cry about. So you weren't allowed to cry. You weren't allowed to deal with your emotions, things like that. So they would all become all within your body. And from that experience of the yoga, I understood that when you're doing exercise and movement, you're releasing emotions that you're stuck, right? And that's where a lot of our ailments come from, because our body becomes stiff and rigid and we put on weight when we're not dealing with our emotions. And that was the first experience that I had with that, with the yoga, where after the practice, we just lay down and was in savasana. So we were just relaxing. And the minute I just relaxed, like everything that I was working on in the body, it was like it was broken up, right? It was the physical form of the emotions, at that point where I was working, and I didn't really realize it until like later on in life, of course. It was breaking up, and I was just when I relaxed and let it go, it just like, and all the emotions just came up, and I was just like in this space of surrender and release, right? And so tears just flooded from my eyes, right? And I didn't know where it was coming from. I just know it was unstoppable. I couldn't control it. It was just a weeping. And it was really interesting to have found yoga. As I said, she had just come from India and was taught Vinyasa flow, right? And so the way she had class was very I would say in a way that was able to get me into that space, because how she had the class set up, we were all in a circle, the lights were dim, so nobody was focusing on anybody else, nobody's worried about being seen or shy, or you know am I doing it wrong. There was no mirrors to look in. There was candles burning, a little bit of incense. It was very spiritual and mystical, right? So I was like, okay. And so that was like my first experience with the yoga, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go back and do another one, because it was like, all right. And so I had wanted to talk to her um, after the class, but like there was somebody always there talking to her, or I couldn't get in to talk to her for a moment to like try to find out what's going on, because I was like my first experience with yoga and I really wasn't sure what was going on. And it was just really like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and talk to her. Then the next time I'll come in early and see if I can speak with her a few minutes, about what was happening. Maybe she could bring some light, because I lived under a rock, basically. And I didn't really understand what was going on, having come back into the physical form. From my perspective, I just knew what was happening, right? And so from that point, that was my first experience with the yoga. And then my second experience, I had an out of body experience. So we were in savasana after the practice, and she came around and she put some essential oil and did like a little massage here, and I was just so relaxed. And she was doing a reading, like she would do like a wisdom reading or a talk while we're doing savasana. And so as she was doing that, I was literally just in such a relaxed state that for some whatever reason there was like this white orb that was above me, right? And I was like focusing in on that, right? I was like, what is this orb, right? And it was like I had literally saw myself reach up into the orb, and I literally went up. I was like I was sucked up into it, right? And when I got up in there, it was like nothing existed. Like even the room wasn't there, it was not even there. I was there in the orb, and then the awareness came to me that I wasn't in my body, and I turned around and I looked down. My body was on the floor, and I was up into the orb, my consciousness, right? the minute that happened, it was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be out of my body. And so I was sucked right back into my body, and I became aware that I was back on the floor in my body, and I was like, well, what just happened? And so that was my second experience in yoga, right? I was like, something's going on here. I don't know what's going on. I didn't get to talk to her after the last class. I didn't get to talk to her that morning because again, people were always there in my way, so I couldn't really talk to her. Trying to figure out what was going on here. And I'm like, all right, I'll go ahead and talk to her the next time. Or try after class, but still couldn't get a word in edgewise. And I had other things to do after class, so I couldn't sit there and wait for like ever. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and try tomorrow, the next class, right? Fortunately, I was there and I was into the next class. However, that teacher wasn't there. She had moved on. She was only there temporarily. I had this other lady come in and she taught, and the lights were on, and she was more like drill sergeant, masculine energy type person, more exercise um, driven, person teaching a yoga class. And let's say that was the last time I went to go to that class because after that class, I was so disappointed. No same results, no aware, no in-depth results. Like it was a total different um, experience. She was all about exercising, strengthening, toning, and that's why she was teaching yoga. The other one was teaching because it's more an inner journey, a more spiritual journey, a more connection, more divine way of being with the practice. So you get two, depending on where you're coming from, you're going to have two different experiences, whatever is your intention, how you're using it. It's a tool that can be used another way. However, what is your intention with it, right? So yogic systems use it more of your divine connection, right? Seeking, finding your true self. And so, like I said, needless to say, I never returned to the class because I really didn't connect with her. It wasn't for me how she was teaching. Um, and then after that class, having been disappointed that the other teacher I didn't get to know really her name or what was going on. I went down to the front desk after class and I asked, I was like, where's that teacher? When's she coming back? Because I really wanted to talk to her. I wanted to find out more. Because like I said, I lived under a rock. I didn't know what was going on, or it was like the beginning of my spiritual path, right? So it was the awakening, then the meditation, and then the yoga. And I'm like, okay, what is happening here? And even though I had the going home experience, everything was wiped away for the most part. Coming back in, so it was kind of like I was starting anew and carrying on from that point. But as I was coming, I was being guided to the path, right? So I was still having to finish my path, but without remembering from the going home experience what I was going to be doing. So it's kind of like starting all over from birth, but from this place where I had left off. So it was like I didn't have to take a new rebirth in order to do it. I could just come back and finish. But following the guidance, of the path. So it was after the awakening, the meditation, and then the yoga. Now, if you're going through, wanting to work on yourself, seeking, and I want to put that out as tools for you to do, right, intentionally. Find meditation. If you're struggling with anything emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, find meditation and the right meditation, right? Because there's a lot of different types of meditation. Same thing. It's whatever your intention is. Like if you're going to do a meditation that's a guided meditation, you're going to have different experience. And if you are quieting the mind, which is the thinker that creates your suffering, and if you're doing that form of meditation is totally different response from your intention of what you're doing. So there's different meditations, and just like there's different forms of yoga, right? So having not had that third class, I was very disappointed, because I was hoping for, either to speak with her or to have more um, healing and shifting or whatever it is that I was going on here. There's obviously more going on than what I'm experiencing or knowing. And so this is, part of this is why I get to teach this, because if I hadn't gone through the experience, then I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to share it. I wouldn't be able to teach it. And this is what I help people with in our sessions, do a meditation, do yoga. And when you're stepping on the path of awakening and healing, transform yourself, uh, the path opens. So for me, after the awakening, what came the meditation. Then when I was ready for through the meditation, at that point, the person came in to teach the yoga, right? And so and so and so and so, right? Our path opens the minute we step on it. So having talked to the front desk after the class, she had said, yeah, she just came from India. She was passing through. Uh, she stopped to see her parents before she moved on, because she was going to go around and start teaching what she knows from, and she spent time in India with learning and the practicing, getting certified, things like that. And so she wasn't coming back, they said. And so I was like, very disappointed in that. So again, like I said, I never returned to that other class because, it really wasn't what I was being drawn to, and it really wasn't what I was looking for, and it just didn't match my energy, And so, I mean, it has its purpose, if you're trying to get physically fit, it's a great way to do that. However, that wasn't where I was headed, right? So that was the end of the experiences for the yoga. From that point until I had found yoga in Florida, after I had moved to Florida, after the path led me to Florida. So I'll talk about that in a different video, but I did want to share that, And so the takeaways from what I'm saying is here is you can use any tool. It's going to be your uh, intention on how you're going to use it, what you're using it for, and yoga, for me, real yoga is a spiritual practice, right? Because otherwise it's just exercise. Now with spiritual practice, it's about turning in, focusing, being present with yourself, paying attention to how your body is moving, tuning in. And it's in that in itself is healing, self-reflection, connection, balancing, because you're balancing your chakras, right? And it's the stream of energy flowing through. And there's practice within yoga that, like when you do savasana, you're surrendering, right? You're just relaxing and surrendering. And everything that you've broken up within your energy field, your body, because your body doesn't end here at the physical level that you're seeing. Your body is extended and it's energy, right, in the form. And when you have stuck energy, um, it creates issues, mind, body, spirit issues, right? So whether it's an ailment, emotional, physical, um, our bodies sore, weak, fragile, our bodies break down, it's a lot of stuck energy, right? And so illnesses arise, mental, emotional, physical stuff. So, and I learned more about that in Reiki, because I took Reiki and I learned that. So from the Reiki, and doing and practicing and doing sessions with people, I was able to read their bodies, their energies, and that's going to be a different video. But for me, true yoga is a spiritual practice. It's not exercise, right? And that's a whole different ballgame in itself. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but when you're on the spiritual journey, yoga, you want to be able to do the form of yoga that is for, your spiritual practice, not exercise. So you're not going to get out of it the same results you would when you're doing it, because it's more about bodybuilding, yoga with exercise. Um, when you're doing yoga, you have like the practice, right? But then you have more within the practice. So you have parts of it like the surrender, you have the breaking up of the energy, the form, the emotions, the non-physical aspects of yourself. It's not just about your physical appearance and what you're trying to work on if you're doing yoga as an exercise. Um, it's a lot more deeper than that, And so again, there's nothing wrong with it, but if that's what you want to do, that's what you do. But just wanted to give you those two comparisons there on that. But it was really cool to have the out of body experience with yoga, and then they have the emotional release of things that I've not dealt with, because as I said, up until that point, it was always, you don't deal with your emotions. Those are, and that's just old upbringing, right, from generations past to the present moment. And so being able to be okay with and deal with our emotions and not stuff them down, and because our body becomes frail, old, and weak, and ill and diseased. So when we're not doing that, so having that and doing that, we do want to make sure that we're working, with the yoga in that way, because it has a lot more than if you were like I was saying, if you're doing it like exercise is okay, because you're still kind of breaking it up then, but your focus on the frame mind is on your physical outward appearance, not your inner appearance. So it's your intention, which is okay. I'm going to use this as a tool for exercise to make myself look better. You're focusing on the outward aspect of yourself, not really your inner aspect, right? But I originally just wanted to start off with, how the experiences were, because that was really cool, but there's a lot more to share, about that with yoga and meditation and your journey. When you, like I said, when you start off on your journey, it just opens up and the next thing comes, and then the next thing comes, and then the next thing comes, and you just have to follow it. That's the path. All right. So yeah, that was a really cool experience, as far as the out of body experience and the emotional release from it. So, if you are on the path, awakening in the journey, and everyday life, yoga is a good tool for spiritual, mental, emotional wellness and well-being. Right, your divine connection, um, and then meditation. Right, so meditation is good too. And I'll talk about my meditation journey in different videos. So, because that's been quite a journey for me as well. I found my breath and different things like that. And so I'll talk about that. And then going into samadhi. But yeah, so that's just what I wanted to share in this clip here. The out of body experience, your intention with it, and, different forms of it, as well as like, the benefits you can get out of it. All right. Happy journeys.